The Gen 1 pseudo-legendary GOAT Dragonite finally got the respect it deserves with a Mega Evolution in Legend ZA. But this Mega has some interesting stat changes that make it a little bit tricky to build around for ZA rank battles. So today, I'm going to break down some different movesets you can use for Dragonite, as well as some teammates to use with it. So like and sub for more Pokemon ZA content in the future, but let's get into it. Alright, so let's talk about Mega Dragonite stat distribution, because it's kind of interesting. So base Dragonite has an attack stat of 134. However, when it Mega Evolves into Mega Dragonite, it actually loses 10 attack points, going down to 124, because this Pokemon actually becomes a special attacker when it Mega Evolves, which honestly, I think is really cool, because Dragonite really struggles with stab, flying type moves. So getting access to a higher special attack allows you to utilize things like Hurricane and things of that nature to do some massive damage. And the special attack jumps from 100 in the base form to 145 in the Mega form, which is just quite an impressive jump as far as a stat boost goes. It also gains 20 speed points, which is massive, 25 special defense points, as well as 20 defense points. This thing gets much more bulky, much faster, and is a wicked special attacker in its Mega form, which is really cool. However, it gets tricky to build around this with your different move sets and things of that nature due to this stat change. Because of the fact that you are jumping quite a bit and losing some attack, it's kind of weird what moves you actually want to take on this particular Pokemon. So like I said, it gets a little interesting picking actual movesets for this Pokemon because of the wicked stat distribution change going from the base form to the Mega form. So honestly, it's kind of weird. So what I'd recommend if you're running Mega Dragonite, as far as EVs go, I would definitely say just max here, right? And then you could throw the last into the defense slot there, and then give it a modest nature, right? So here's your basic EV spread that you're going to see with this particular Pokemon. Now, what I would suggest for moves is kind of interesting. This thing gets a ton of coverage, by the way. Like, it's a wicked amount of coverage. I would definitely say something like Hurricane off the rip. Hurricane, just incredibly powerful flying stab for this particular Pokemon to benefit off of that huge special attack boost. That is very, very nice. And you also get access to a bunch of different moves. Now, you have to consider, you could run Draco Meteor. You 100% could run Draco Meteor, and that is going to nuke some things. Absolutely obliterate some stuff. However, you have to factor in that you are going to lower that special attack by doing that. I think that is one thing that is a little nerve-wracking with this particular Pokemon, when you could run something like Dragon Pulse instead. And honestly, you could even run both. You could just run both and say screw it, right? You could run Dragon Pulse and Draco Meteor and just say screw it. That doesn't help you a ton with all of the fairy types that are running around, like Gardevoir, Clefairy, whatever the case may be, right? So that doesn't help you a ton. So I would definitely say you could do this. I would pick between the two moves. So you're either going to see probably Dragon Pulse or Draco Meteor on this particular Pokemon for that particular slot. But like I said, this thing gets wicked coverage options. So if you're running this and, you know, you're like a 4-time weak to ice type attacks, I would definitely consider running something, you know, that could cover ice types. Glaceon seems to be picking up a little bit. People like Glaceon a little bit. But the main thing that you're going to be seeing are water types with access to Ice Fang, and that is very, very scary for Dragonite. So I would definitely say something like Thunderbolt is going to give you the edge that you're looking for against those particular Pokemon, or, you know, Greninja with Ice Beam, things like that. Water types with an ice coverage move is going to be the main detriment to this particular Pokemon. And then the final move that I'm going to recommend is Extreme Speed. Why do I recommend a physical move on a special attacking set? Well, Extreme Speed is incredibly fast to cast, and you just pretty much secure a KO. You see something, you click Extreme Speed, and you knock it out. For that reason, I talked about having a modest nature on this particular Pokemon, but honestly, is it worth the trade-off to lower the attack stat even farther? You could get away with just running a neutral nature on this particular Pokemon. Really, it's up to you, ultimately, if you want that extra boost in special attack, or if you would rather just have that extra damage on your Extreme Speed. You kind of have to weigh your options for this particular Pokemon because of its interesting change in stat distribution and how it functions. You have to be aware of that. So you could go modest, or you could go a neutral nature and get away with it. I think that would be beneficial, but you kind of, like I said, you have to weigh your options for this particular Pokemon. I don't think there's a lot of merit personally to going for a big, you know, like attack build for Mega Dragonite. There's such a significant difference here between the attack and the special attack. Now, what you could do alternatively is run a neutral nature and run something like Outrage as your dragon attack. that could be really beneficial, because then what helps you with this particular set is that while you are still in your base Dragonite form, you have a powerful physical attacking move that will benefit you while you are, have that higher attack stat. So that's definitely an option to consider as far as Mega Dragonite, because you do have to play this Pokemon at least at some point. You'll likely have to play this Pokemon in its base form, not just its Mega form. So you have to be mindful of those stat distributions. So something like Outrage could prove to be very beneficial for you. Now, I want to talk about Dragonite on its own. Like, without anything else going on with it, just Dragonite, right? This guy. You have to remember that this is a physical attacker in this form, right? And I think Dragonite's actually really good on a number of teams because of its coverage options. I would definitely recommend just doing this and then go into defense there. And then something to the effect of running, you could run Assault Vest on this Pokemon, right? Give it some extra bulk, so you got like, and honestly, the move sets that you can run on this thing are very varied. I think Extreme Speed goes on all of them. I don't think that's a question. You want Extreme Speed for that extra damage, and I think that is incredibly important for being able to secure KOs with this Pokemon. This thing is super awesome at snagging and kill stealing in this game because of this move. So definitely recommend having Dragonite with Extreme Speed, regardless of the item that you're using, right? As far as moves go, there are a number of different things. Now, one thing that I've been using and I find to be really fun is running No Stab, right? So Fire Punch, Ice Punch, Thunder Punch. These moves are all incredibly fast with relatively short cooldowns, and they do lots of damage. Now, if you're running this particular set, I do not recommend the Assault Vest, right? I just don't think the Assault Vest is the item. If you're running this particular set, what I would recommend is Life Orb. On this particular set, you get extra damage from the Life Orb. You are going to take some additional chip due to holding the Life Orb, or the alternate item that you could use is Expert Belt. Those are the two items that I would recommend for this set, because basically you're running Extreme Speed with a bunch of coverage moves to deal a bunch of damage and take care of those issues that you're having with this Pokemon. I think that is a really solid way to go about playing this, but again, you have options. You don't necessarily have to do this. You could run like Outrage. You could run, does it get Iron Head or something for coverage? It does get Iron Head to cover those fairies. That would be pretty beneficial. There's even Dragon Rush that you could run. I think Thunder Punch is still really good, simply because of the fact that, you have Gyarados and stuff with Ice Fang running around, or Greninjas, things of that nature. I think having that is a solid option. Now, if you wanted to have an extra stab move instead of having something like Iron Head, I think having something along the lines of like Wing Attack would be beneficial to do damage to those grass type Pokemon. But again, this Pokemon's a little awkward due to the lack of physical coverage moves that it has at its disposal. It's just kind of weird. Like I just don't like a lot of the coverage, like Focus Punch. I don't care about that. You have Fire Punch, you have Ice Punch, but it's just the lack of physical flying moves is really what I'm getting down to. Is like there's just not a ton of good physical flying moves. Like if you look back at Scarlet and Violet, we literally would Terra the Pokemon to a flying type to use Terra Blast, because there's just not a ton of good physical flying type moves that this Pokemon gets. So that is kind of the issue that you're having. As far as coverage, like I said, there's a lot. Ice Punch, Fire Punch, Thunder Punch. I think it gets Earthquake even. Like it gets a lot of different moves, but the physical flying stab that you would need on this Pokemon is a little depressing when you look at the move pool that it has, which is why getting access to things like Hurricane is so huge for Mega Dragonite. But now we need to talk about teammates for this Pokemon, right? Teammates that are going to make this Pokemon shine. I think there's a number of different teammates. I mean, typically you're going to see this on Fantasy Course. So obviously Metagross with screens, Reflect, Light Screen, and whatever other coverage moves you want to run on Metagross, whatever you need. This is going to be really, really good because you can set screens with Metagross, maybe run like Rocky Helm or something annoying on it. Set your screens with this particular Pokemon, switch into Dragonite, and you cover, your weaknesses pretty effectively with these two. You're weak to fire, you're weak to ground. Dragonite resists fire and doesn't get hit by ground. These two work really, really nicely together. Another Pokemon, there are a handful of different options here. You could run like Gardevoir. Gardevoir is pretty good. I mean, fairy types are like plenty in this game. You have a lot of options. Gardevoir, Sylveon. I've seen some people running Sylveon with a lot of success. Clefable, if you're running a more offensive steel type Pokemon. running something like maybe you're running Scizor in that skill type slot. That could be good for the, you know, run Clefable, Dragonite, and Scizor. That could be really good. You know, so you just kind of have to match your fairy type with whatever steel type you're using. Depending on the variation of a steel type Pokemon that you're utilizing, you're going to want a different fairy. Like, obviously, you don't want to be running like Clefable and Metagross together. These two are both just bulky screen setters, so you don't really want to use these two together because they're not going to give you as much benefit as running something else, right? But if you're running like Clefable, Dragonite, and like Scizor, like I said earlier, this is really solid for Pokemon that just like complement each other really well with a lot of options as far as coverage moves go. Or you, like I said earlier, you can run that Metagross with Gardevoir. That's really solid. Or Sylveon, whatever you want to throw in that spot. I think honestly you could interchange Sylveon and Gardevoir. And the big thing about doing that would be if you're running Mega Dragonite or not, right? If you're running Mega Dragonite, you probably would benefit more. You could still use Gardevoir, but like Sylveon is just as usable in that Gardevoir slot as Gardevoir is. But if you're not running Mega Dragonite and you have a slot open for a Mega Gardevoir would fill that very, very well, right? So if you're running a more like Assault Vest, Expert Belt, Life Orb, whatever you're running on Dragonite, you're not running the Mega form, you would be able to have Gardevoir with the Gardevoirite, right? So that's kind of the thought process there, is like figure out what your Mega target is going to be and then build around that aspect. Because whether or not you're using Mega Dragonite versus actual Dragonite, like things get very, very complicated based on the team builds for these two, just based on that factor alone, because how differently they play from one another. So that's kind of what you have to weigh your options with as you're building. And I'm just thinking, like, what are some other Pokemon we could use here? I really do like just like Metagross and Clefable next to this thing. I think it's just so good. There are other options though, like even like Mawile. Maybe throw a Mawile on there. That would definitely be an option. Yeah, it just comes down to how are you playing Dragonite with the teammates you want to put around it. Like, I definitely love the idea of what I was talking about earlier, like Expert Belt or Life Orb with the Fire Punch, not Fire Blast. We don't care about Fire Blast. Fire Punch, Thunder Punch, and oh, we already have it. We need Ice Punch. Like this right here with Metagross with screens sounds like so much fun to me. Like, I really want to try this out. Like, it sounds like just an absolute blast. So yeah, there's definitely some fun options available for this particular Pokemon, but it is interesting simply due to the nature of its Mega Evolution and how it actually functions, right? Now, I mentioned this in the Meganium video. Now, Meganium, if you're running, you know, base Dragonite and you need a Mega slot, Meganium turns into a Fairy type. I don't recommend these two Pokemon together. I really don't. You got two Pokemon weak to Ice. I just don't like that combination at all. I know it turns into a Fairy type. It fits on the Fantasy Core. These typings do not match each other very well in that regard. I would be very scared to go off and just have, you know, maybe there's a Gyarados or something over there that's going to hit you with an Ice Fang. I don't like having these two Pokemon as options here. So that's just something to know. I'm not a huge fan of that. So you could maybe get away with it if you're running like an ABB and your BBs are the Pokemon that are weak to Ice types. That's something you could do. And then you have, you know, maybe like some sort of Fire type that can take care of those Pokemon a little bit easier. You know, the Ice types, or maybe you have an Electric type in that slot that can deal with the Gyarados, because that's mainly Gyarados, Greninja. Those are the things I'm seeing a lot of Ice type moves on. So that's something you need to be just a little bit aware of if you wanted to build these two Pokemon together. It's not impossible, but it's not something that I personally would be a huge fan of. But that is going to do it for Mega Dragonite. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. How are you using Dragonite in this particular game? Are you using the Mega form? Are you using the base form? Let me know all that fun stuff. But like I said, that is it. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe, because it helps me out, helps the video out, helps the channel out immensely. But until next time, peace.